Hello, this is Miss Schrader. Today we're going to be talking about some of the paintings of Gustav Klimt. My students, you're going to need a piece of paper and something to write with. You're going to be taking notes, and when you're done, you're giving me 10 strong sentences about what you found interesting, educational, and important about the artwork of Gustav Klimt. So Gustav Klimt was born in 1862 in Baumgarten, Austria, and he died in 1918 in Vienna. He is identified as an Austrian symbolist painter and one of the most prominent members of the Vienna secession movement. So he did most of his work in Vienna, and he's a very avant-garde, very out there, working with a lot of different groups. Um, for civil rights and things like that. And his artwork is definitely unusual, definitely has a different style that we're going to be discussing. This is a painting of Klimt. He did not do it himself. It's called Klimt in a Light Blue Smock. It's by a friend of his, Egon Schiele, done in 1913. So the Vienna secession movement was this kind of weird group who were in favor of just giving people more rights and things like that. Their symbol was Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of just causes, wisdom, and the arts, and she was in the painting that I just showed you a minute ago. And as he continues to do this, a lot of his work is called pornographic. He definitely moves away from the early Impressionist stuff that he had into some unusual stuff. And he, interestingly enough, becomes famous for hanging out with rich liberal people who want to give people more rights. And he's painting a lot of these rich liberal people. Klimt could do a lot of very impressionist stuff. If you look at this, this is called Farm Garden with Sunflowers. Looks very much like an impressionist piece, lots of blotches of color and things like that. Just, very, very pretty. But then he also is working in some areas that are rather disturbing and strange. This painting is called Judith and Holofernes. It was done in 1901. It's a biblical piece. If you know your Bible stories, Judith is a Jewish woman who the Jews were under attack, and the leader of the other group, whose name I can't remember, his name was Holofernes. So Judith decides to go to him, seduce him, sleep with him, and then that night while he's asleep, she chops off his head. You can see his head to the bottom right there. Um, the other thing is that Klimt started using a lot of gold in his paintings. And what he would do is he would get this really narrow plates of gold, melt them down, and put them into the paint. So all that shiny gold color, that's actual gold. He did a lot of stuff in which the woman's face is very realistic, looking very, very beautiful. He did a lot of things with beautiful women. And then the other parts of the painting would either be very stylized, very abstract, or just very erotic. This piece is called The Kiss. It's from 1907, 1908. Once again, it's oil paint, but there's gold, silver, and platinum in some of the paint. You see this couple in a very strong romantic and sexual embrace. They're standing on what looks to be a field of flowers. The man is wearing a robe that seems to have geometric shapes and swirls. The woman is wearing some sort of a robe with flowers. You can see her feet. So she seems to be kneeling as the man bends over to kiss her. On the other hand, her face seems quite excited, quite happy with the kiss that she is receiving. So it does look like a very, very beautiful piece. Once again, lots and lots of gold in this, and not a lot of realism at all. This is Klimt's most famous painting, the portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer, also known as The Lady in Gold or The Woman in Gold. It's done in 1907. It's oil with gold leaf on canvas. And this was a commissioned painting of a woman named Adele Bloch Bauer. And you can see once again, there's a huge amount of gold in there. She's wearing this big, elaborate dress with lots of geometric shapes. Um, Basically, only her face and her hands look realistic. Also, you need to notice she's wearing a necklace that is referred to as a choker. It's a necklace that fits tight to the neck, and it she was actually wearing the necklace at the time in which the painting was done. It's an actual painting of diamonds or an actual piece of diamonds. This is an actual picture of Adela Bloch-Bauer, so he certainly made her look a lot better than she actually looked, but he did seem to really enjoy painting her. He did several pieces of her, though, of course, these were done, as I've mentioned, in commission. So Adela Bloch-Bauer was a member of this large group of very liberal, wealthy Austrians living in Vienna at the time. They're in favor of increasing the number of people who have the right to vote. They're in favor of increasing the say that people have in the government and things like that. So, this radical group. She and her family were very wealthy Jewish people, and this becomes important as the story goes along. Um, He does the painting for her. It's in her very, very wealthy house that people can see. And eventually she dies. She died rather young. I'm trying to find the exact date of her death. But she never had any children. The painting stayed with her husband, who was Jewish. When we get to the 1930s and the Germans come in and the Nazis come in, suddenly the Bloch-Bauer family, a wealthy Jewish family, are in trouble. By the way, Adela is the face used in the painting of Judith that I'm adding here. So the Bloch-Bauer family had to flee Austria, flee Europe. Some of them were, in fact, captured by the Nazis and put to death. But most of them were able to flee, but they had to leave behind all of their wealth, including the portrait of Adela Bloch-Bauer. When the Nazis came into these houses where the Jews had lived, and some of the Jews were wealthy, they would pick and choose what they liked and keep it. Some of it would be destroyed, some of it would be sold. This particular painting, the Nazis didn't like Klimt's stuff. They thought it was erotic and disturbing. They were going to destroy it. But an art historian really liked the painting and took it to be placed in the Belvedere, the prestigious museum in Vienna, and there it remained for 50 years. The name of the painting was changed to Woman in Gold or Lady in Gold to hide the fact that the woman in the painting was a Jewish woman. A huge number of artworks belonging to wealthy Jewish people were stolen during the Nazi period. And in the period after that, a lot of Nazi families started pushing the various different governments of Europe, the United States government, and even the international governments to push to find a way to make sure that the families got their paintings back. Maria Altmann, shown here, was the niece of Adela Bloch-Bauer, and in 1998 she began pushing to get back the painting of Adela Bloch-Bauer from the Austrian government. The Austrians were really upset about this. They really did think of this painting now as the Mona Lisa of Austria. And the whole thing was taken not only all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, Austria versus Altmann, but all the way to the international courts. And eventually, it was decided that the Bloch-Bauer family did need to have their painting back. The people in the Belvedere Museum asked Mrs. Altman to let them keep the painting on display in the Belvedere. But because she and her family had been treated so badly by the Austrians under the Nazis. She refused. Maria also had a lot of relatives, nieces and nephews and cousins who had a say in the painting. And so she was not in a position to keep it. She and her family sold the painting. It is now in the New Gallery in New York City, New York, along with a great many of their paintings. But it has become famous in part because of a book called Woman in Gold and a subsequent movie not only telling the story of the painting being done, but of Maria Altman's efforts to eventually get custody of the painting again. All right, my students, you are giving me 10 complete sentences about what you found interesting, educational, and important about the artwork of Gustav Klimt.